I'm actually in the middle of a Ben Franklin biography, the one by Isaacson.
Right.
And it's really good. And it has me asking all the time, God, what would he think if he could see the nation now? He was a Puritan. He wasn't really into it, but he was part of that tradition. And you forget about how puritanical we were and how that word has become universally referred to as negative because they were so judgmental. He wasn't. He was much more relaxed. But just you look around the country today, we just finished with the Grammys where everybody's half naked with their body completely exposed and the way they behave up there and calling for us to allow all the immigrants in because no, you can't have an illegal on a land that is stolen. Like, I just think these founders, and you write a lot about James Madison in the book, wouldn't believe their eyes or ears. And I think, quite frankly, they'd be horrified.
Well, Megyn, I'm so glad that you raised Benjamin Franklin, who plays a big role in the book. The book actually explores much of this history through the eyes of Thomas Paine, who was one of only two figures that played a great role in both the American and French revolutions, the other being Lafayette. But it really looks at Paine, who may be the quintessential American. He arrived on these shores a human wreck. He had to be carried off the ship. He had failed in everything he had ever tried in his life, from marriages to being fired at every job. And yet he arrived 2 years before the Declaration of Independence. And within 2 years, he was called the penman of the revolution. There was only one person who saw anything in that mound of wreckage. And that was a man he ran into in London, Benjamin Franklin. And he looked at this penniless individual, was called a drunkard. He was unkept. He was a total failure. And Benjamin Franklin saw something in him and sent him to the United States to write. And he ended up writing the first bestseller, Common Sense, that was credited by many with being the spark that caused the American Revolution. Even his critics, by the way, John Adams, who didn't like Paine, sort of jealous of Paine because he was a newcomer, admitted to his wife that in the first meeting with Paine, there was a recollection that there was this odd writer that had, quote, genius in his eyes. And I think that's what Benjamin Franklin saw in London.
Yeah, Paine, who, like, people were kind of talking about revolution, but not taking it seriously. And then he wrote Common Sense, and that thing caught fire and gave real voice to it in a way that would be critical to the actualization of us leaving and declaring ourselves an independent nation and throwing off the reins of the king. So what do you think, Jonathan? Because when I look around today, more and more I hear people jokingly, but like kind of wistfully saying we need to break up all over again. We're so different left and right in this country now. There's really no common ground. We really should be two Americas now. There should be a red America and a blue America because we can't even understand the other side. We're getting shot and killed by the other side if you're a conservative.
Yeah, the book looks at what I call the rise of the new Jacobins. And, the original Jacobins were much like those today. They were not the proletariat. They were the aristocrats. They were...
But explain who they were.
The Jacobins, the French Revolution was led by the Jacobins who created the terror. And these were professors, and they were low-level aristocrats, and they were journalists. And they unleashed the terror, guillotining people left and right. Thousands were put to death. And ultimately, the Jacobins themselves fell victim to their own rage. The book starts with a quote from one of you could say he was the Thomas Paine of the French Revolution. And they asked him, what did you do during the revolution? He said, I survived, which was a rare thing because, I quote another Frenchman who said that revolution is like Saturn. It devours its own. Well, the French Revolution did devour its own. All of those Jacobins called the Mountain were executed. Robespierre, Marat, all of them ended up dying. And the book asks, why Why did the American Revolution become a stable democracy, and why did this become a bloodletting? Well, I asked that same question with the new Jacobins, who are coming from many of the same class structure. And you have even the dean of Berkeley Law School saying the American Constitution is a failure. One of my colleagues wants to amend the First Amendment because she says it's too aggressively individualistic, which is the point. It is, right? Because the one thing the book points out is that we were the Enlightenment revolution. We were the first revolution of the Enlightenment. And it was based on this idea that we deserved, we demanded rights given to us by God, not by the government. These natural rights. No revolution had ever been fought on that basis.
It's interesting. Right now, I'm just at the beginning of the book, and they're writing about how Franklin worked for his older brother on a newspaper that he started called I think the New England Courant, and that newspaper and his older brother, who Benjamin Franklin did not like, was very much skeptical of government, very much not wanting to be controlled by government, wanted to get those reins off of us. And even though Benjamin Franklin didn't wind up liking this brother, who was very tough on him, he appears to have inherited or at least shared that trait with him in a way that would become very important to the way we live our lives, even to this moment. And that I just feel like between the Biden administration for the right and now the Trump administration for the left, I think there's a very strong strain of American that wants a smaller executive and wants less governmental power over our lives. But no matter how much we say that, we seem to go the opposite direction these days. So do you think we'll ever get back to the point where we have a small government, and we certainly have a small executive branch with as little power as possible over us?
Well, Rage in the Republic addresses that and asks whether we can return to first principles. And one of those principles is that all rights, like government, should be local, held closest to the people. That includes reinforcing federalism and state rights against the national government. It also means opposing global governance systems like the EU, also what I call corporate feudalism, these large corporations that control much of social media. We have to resist these efforts to globalize democracy and then kill democracy. Now, that can actually be done because it's in our DNA. If you look at the founders, they believe strongly in this. One of the things I argue for in the book is that we need to rediscover what I call a liberty-enhancing economy. The book is an unabashed case for capitalism, which is also under attack. What many people don't realize is that in 1776, same year as the Declaration of Independence, you had the publication of Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. Now, it was not a big success in Great Britain, but it was a success here. The founders recognized his economic theory as the perfect companion to their political theory, because they believed that you couldn't have true liberty, true independence, unless you had economic independence. So one of the things I address in Rage in the Republic is when we have a combination of robotics and AI, we're looking at a massive loss of jobs. And we also look at the possibility of a large unemployed population. And the book explores what does that do to a citizen's relationship to the state? Because the framers didn't want that. If you can't have a kept population without having citizens begin to change their view of the state. And so what the book talks about is how we can preserve a liberty-enhancing economy to make sure that people do not develop that dependency or become some types of arts.
Well, they are.
Right.
I mean, we're already seeing that in some pockets. International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital currency. There is a never-ending list of reasons that gold has risen over 700% in the last 20 years. And a never-ending list of reasons smart Americans diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals with Birch Gold Group. Gold can thrive during uncertainty, which is why it's a crucial part of a balanced strategy. It gives you peace of mind, given all the events that could impact the U.S. economy. See if holding gold in a tax-sheltered retirement account is right for you. Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. Just text MK to the number 989898 to receive your free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, consider letting Birch Gold help you diversify with gold, so you too can have peace of mind regardless of the uncertainty. Text MK to the number 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.